Welcome back to Off Script, the podcast where we go beyond the scenes, beyond the industry jargon, and straight into the raw, unfiltered stories of filmmaking. I'm Fallon Goodson, joined by my incredible co-host Sky Lopez, and today we have a guest who is not just a producer, but a true innovator in the independent film space. Joey Vasatka has built his career from the ground up, literally, from rigging cables to producing full-scale feature films, and now launching a game-changing streaming platform for indie filmmakers. Joey's journey is one of resilience, adaptability, and refusing to play by Hollywood's outdated rules. So grab your coffee, your matcha, or maybe something stronger, because we're going off script with Joey Vasatka.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off Script. And I'm so excited that we have the one, the only Joey. Why did that sound like a stadium? I don't know.
That's funny. Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Honored, truly, to come on your show, and thank you for thinking of me.
Well, we're so excited to have you, Joey. You are amazing. You have been such a mentor for Fallon and I as we go through our own film production stuff. And so we are so honored to have you. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. So my name is Joey Vasatka. I'm an independent film producer. I live in Covington, Louisiana. I grew up in the good old Midwest. I never thought I'd find myself working in film, but here I am, 12 years later, and it's been just the most incredible journey.
Well, on that note, how did you get started in film, and what was your journey into specifically indie film?
Oof, this is going to be a long one. We've got time. So we'll take it back to when I was a kid. I always had fun shooting, short videos with friends. And, I was always familiar with editing software. So I kind of immersed myself in a lot of different things. I always wanted to play music. So instead of going to school, I told my parents that I wanted to go to music school. I was going to LA, and I'm going to go to Musicians Institute. And they looked at me like I was a psychopath. They're like, you're crazy. You can stay home. I did what every sane person would do, and I ended up joining the military instead. Because I figured the government could pay I'll do 4 years. The government could pay for my school, and I'll continue my journey into music. And I quickly found that I did not have to do that. Although I think joining the military ultimately was the best decision I ever made. It's how I, met the people I know in the industry. It's how I worked my way into New Orleans and into the industry here. So I had separated, and I was going back to school for psychology. I had everything mapped out. Okay, I've got 8 years of school here. It's gonna be a long run, but this is what I'm doing. And I had a friend, one of my best friends, Cotter Al-Harami, who I played in a band with. He would go and work in New Orleans every once in a while. At this point in time, I'm living in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So he'd go and work for a while and come back to be a massage therapist in Florida. And he was kind of a stoner hippie. And he'd come back, and one day I peeped his check, and I was working at Best Buy and going to school. It was truly amazing. And I see this check, and I'm like, oh, what is that? Like a month of work? Is that like your whole run? And he's like, oh man, it's a week. And I'm like, week? It was like $4,000. I was like, oh my God. And I just started rethinking my entire life. I'm like, what am I doing? This is insane. This is the longest journey, and I'm going to be miserable. So he's like, yeah, dude, I've been telling you, come up and drop out of school. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a lot to ask. But now that I see there's some money in this, well, let's go. So I ended up dropping out of school. I moved to New Orleans, and I work on this show called Ravenswood. And it was a spinoff of Pretty Little Liars. And so I'm working as an additional in the rigging electric department. So we're hauling cable. They're super early. They're very late. It's sometimes 6-7 days a week, and it's like grueling labor. But it was a lot of fun just because it's just down and dirty. Unless you're really opening your eyes, you're not really learning much about the industry. You're just kind of like, wow, this is massive. It's none of like the glory that you think would be when you hear the film industry. You're like, wow, that's amazing. I'm like, no, man, I'm like in the mud every day.
Yeah.
So I work maybe 2 to 3 days a week for about 6 weeks. And I'm like, this is not bad. I'm, making decent money. It was like $600 to $800 a week. And, I can pay for my place here. My fiance at the time, my wife now, lived in Florida. So I was kind of helping her out as well. Well, this happens. Apparently I didn't know, but shows get canceled. So as soon as I'm like, I'm in, the show gets canceled, and I didn't know anybody else. And these guys, this crew, crews are very tight knit. So if you work with a crew, you're pretty much sticking with them unless you know a lot of people in the industry and they can pick you up for a day here and there. But they pretty much have their crew set unless somebody gets fired, right? You got to do something kind of terrible to get fired in the industry. So I just worked little jobs here and there for the next couple of months until they got another show. And then I got full-time on the crew and then just never stopped working. And I was about 5 years in, I think it was like season 4 of NCIS New Orleans. And I'm looking around, and at this time, I'm a best boy. So I'm, hiring people that are twice my age. I'm like, holy cow, man, like I'm going to be doing this until I'm 60, and which is not bad, but there's really no benefit in it. And we'll get into that later on, which is like back end points for the crew and things like that, which doesn't happen. So I'm looking around, I'm having another kind of midlife crisis at 25, and Cotter and myself, we just think like, wow, man, we have a lot of resources, right? We know how much everything costs. We know the people, we work directly with these people. We're building lists of equipment. We know what all this equipment is. I worked at a rental house. I know all the camera stuff. We know a lot of people in the industry. Let's just start shooting music videos. Like, it's that easy. So we shot the worst music videos you've ever seen. Started with our own, thankfully. And I just kind of fell into the position of just lining everything up, budgeting everything, making sure everything's paid for, making sure people are taken care of. I didn't know that that's what a producer did at that point in time. And I just kept rolling with it and doing more and more and more. And then our music videos got better and better and better. And then we started doing advertisements and commercials, and I got into politics, which was a funny experience. I'll never do it again. But I'm grateful for it. Cesspool of craziness. And then we had our slate of films with Dreamseeker that we were trying to fund. At that point in time, as you guys know, the industry was changing a lot with all these streaming platforms and the way financing was working, and it's very difficult to show that you can make a return on anything. So, and then people outside of the industry didn't want to take a risk because they had never done it before. And when you're 25, 26, you don't really, not that I even knew what I was talking about at that point in time, but you don't look like you know what you're talking about really either because you're so young. So that was another big hurdle. So we got super close on a bunch of different projects, and I ended up getting a call from a documentary filmmaker by the name of Andy Wakefield, who's a very controversial figure in the medical field. And I remember getting the call and him saying, "Joey, this is Andy Wakefield." I'm like, what? In my head, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I kind of know who this person is. I know the voice. I'd seen interviews and things like that before, but never really did a deep dive into who this person was. And he said he wanted to do a documentary, and my name had been kind of floating around from the people that he had asked, to produce it for him. And, these people couldn't do it. So a few people recommended me, which I was also surprised about that. But I was like, really? So we go through the whole pre-production process with this. It was like 6 months. We had like $1 million for it, and we were going to do it for $1 million, and that was going to be it. Well, the lawyers for this particular documentary on the other side, they axed it, so they didn't want to do it. So he called me and said, "Joey, I've got good news and bad news." I said, "Well, give me the bad news." He said, "Well, the doc is axed. We're not going to do it." Okay, well, what's the good news? And he said, "Well, I've got this feature film called Protocol 7 that we still need some funding for. We've got this $1 million left over, and we need 4 more. So I want you to jump in, budget it, and try to get the funding for it." So I brought on a good friend and mentor of mine at the time named Brian Wendell, he'd been in the reality side of things for a long time. He created shows and worked on a bunch of big ones. And he had kind of got out of the industry, and I kind of reeled him back in, unwillingly, by the way. He was like, "Dude, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out of LA. I was there for 21 years. I'm in Florida now. It sucks." I'm like, "Oh, well, like, let's try some indie stuff, man. It might be kind of fun." And the more we talked, the more we got to know each other, the more like aligned we found ourselves being in like the type of content that we wanted to produce and move forward with. Mm-hmm. So Protocol 7 being this very expository story, it could be seen as controversial, which I don't really know why, but there's a lot of there was a lot of controversy around vaccines and things like that during this time. So we had to be very careful in our selection process of what we actually were going to produce and were we going to do this story. But we did extensive research. We talked to many people who were close to this story, and we ultimately came to the conclusion that this is something that had to be told. And it's like, well, we do it, film is an art form, right? And like if stories like this are not going to be told anywhere else, then who is going to tell them? right? So we thought it was very important that we did so. We kind of understood, hey, if we do this now, we're probably not going to work in mainstream film again. And I was cool with that. I'm like, look, if I just do this one, I'll be happy. And so we shot it. It went well. We weren't involved in the creative process at all. We kind of came in just for the production aspect of it, which we can get into that a little bit later too. But it went very smoothly, and then we got to distribution.
Good distribution.
That was proved to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, it's such a unique subject matter, so I can only imagine that, especially during the time that you guys were aiming to release, that it does bring a lot of controversy because of what the storyline is about. Though in the heart of it, it is really, if you can look at it from a story of a mother who's just deeply concerned about her child and wanting to find fairness and justice in a system that often overlooks things sometimes. A lot of people can kind of understand about someone who's going through a lot of pain and trying to understand how to help their own child.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, it doesn't have to be necessarily looking at it as just vaccines. Any company could be doing something shady, and it sheds a light on, just because you think this is a trustworthy company or name. I mean, we're all human, and humans are involved. So there's human error, there's human dishonesty, there's all those things. So it makes you really think. It sheds the light on just, you're allowed to question things. Just because someone says something doesn't mean that it's the right answer.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You guys brought up both sides of it, which is awesome, because that's why we did it. We didn't know much about, the autism world and things like that until afterward, when we kind of took this thing on the road and met all these mothers and fathers of children, heard their stories like from their mouths. And I'm talking thousands of people with the same exact stories. It's unbelievable. But the reason why we jumped into it was because of the fraud element, right? And exactly what Fallon just said, which is like, hey, an analogy that I like to use a lot. We all know what happened with opioids, right? And opiates and Oxycontin and all these series came out, Painkiller and Dope Sick and all this stuff. And people can hate big pharma because of opiates. Well, as soon as that word is replaced with vaccines, it just turns into this crazy, I'm on this team, I'm on that team. It's like, well, man, this is happening all over the place. And if we're really going to look at something objectively, you can't necessarily play for a team. So we had to cut that out of our own thought process while shooting this film.
Yeah. And that is the beauty of film, right? It is an art form, and everyone has a story to tell, and different stories, different sides of the story to tell. Like Fallon was saying, it begs the question of like, okay, well, you can make your own choice. But at least let's question some things, And I think that's the beauty of all art, is that we get to question things. We get to have something presented, and then you get to make your own choice as to whether it resonates with you or not. And yeah.
And then you get to share it with people, which is amazing,
Yeah.
And it might shape them. It might not. Some people might be, their lives might be changed because of it. And if it's one person, then I think you did your job as a filmmaker, right? Like that's incredible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, completely. And let's just talk about Rachel Whittle really quick, because she did an amazing job. I mean, I was just blown away by her acting, right? Like,
she's a killer. She's a total killer. And she just turns it on. She's like, woo, and she's in it. Yeah. Like, whoa, man. Like, she was nuts. And the thing is, I mean, she made everybody better around her. Yeah. I remember shooting the first day. We ended up cutting like the first 16. I mean, we chopped the crap out of this film, but we cut the first 16 minutes because it was all shot on the first day. I don't know why we wanted to shoot this. It just so happened to be in sequence for the first day or the first week. And I mean, she was strong from the get-go, but there were other people who were like blown away, and it really showed on screen. Oh man, well, luckily it wasn't an aspect of the story that needed to be there in the first place. It would have most likely hit the cutting room floor anyway. But they had to really tap in and kick it into gear to kind of keep up with her, because like she was truly a force. And there's deposition scenes, these deposition scenes where she's like visibly frustrated. She was actually frustrated because, Eric Roberts is sitting across from her, and behind Rachel is like 10,000 cue cards, like 24 by 36 cue cards for Eric. And
oh my gosh.
I have seen this before on set.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you've worked with Eric, you know the cue cards and his quirks. You can tell him no, by the way. So him and the gentleman playing the Merc lawyer, Mike Gassaway, who's a total character as well. If you notice his ring that he wouldn't take off, it's like a giant Super Bowl ring. I'm like, are you an athlete? Like, what's going on? But she's like, nope, this is my ring. So they were giving her so much crap, like in between takes, or even while we were shooting, and she just cut right through it, and she had to remember, I mean, just pages of dialogue, for that. So
I mean, that whole scene was so, I don't know how y'all shot it, but I was like, oh my gosh, because it was continuous and a lot of information. And I was just like, she killed it. She did such a good job.
I know Rachel. I'm from Lafayette. I actually met her during the pandemic, and we helped each other shoot some auditions, and she's a lovely human being. And it was so refreshing to see someone who's not an A-lister lead a film. Was that difficult? Did you pitch her? How did that come about?
Yeah.
So I met Rachel in probably 2017. We were doing like a proof of concept with Matt Garvin, and I was just kind of there to help out. Nothing crazy, but it was fun. I always like to go meet new people, regardless of what it is. I dedicate my time to that, which is fun for me. So ended up meeting Rachel, and I'm like, man, like she's really putting a lot into this, proof of concept. Obviously, people work, very hard on these things because they're trying to sell their film, but she just clearly was, good at her craft. So she's always kind of been in the back of my head for certain roles. And with this one, the team that we were working with, Brian and myself, by the way, when I say like I mean Brian and myself, because we are like literally one person, like one mind. So him and I are always on the same page. And we said from the beginning, like, man, we really need to give this female character, we need to give somebody a chance here. And we'll sprinkle in somebody else. We didn't have a ton of money, and shooting in the States, as you know, is difficult as it is, trying to go non-union. And, we were working through the COVID stuff and some of the strikes or the looming strikes at that point in time. So it was hard enough to get talent, SAG talent that was willing to come work with us. However, we kind of knew in the back of our heads that, we wanted somebody that wasn't a big name for that role. And it took some time because, of course, the director has this person in his head, and he's like, they're going after these massive stars. I'm like, guys, first off, it's never going to happen. We're shooting at this point 3 months, right? Like, let's be real here, and let's put some strategy into this. So I had sent her over initially because I kind of sprinkled her in with a few people that I was pitching. And he's like, oh, no, she's got to be blonde. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. But okay, I guess that's what you see. So it came down to it. And we ended up getting a new casting director named Michael Druck out of Austin, Texas, who is incredible. He's a total killer, him and his whole team. And I just asked him, I said, hey, I'm going to reach out to this woman I know, this actress, and see if she's interested. Just see if she's interested in the topic alone, because that was the first hurdle to get over. And I remember emailing her and saying, hey, I've got this project coming up in Austin. It's, we're shooting September through the end of October. Are you available? Is this something you might be interested in? Here's the director. This is the, synopsis and whatnot. And she responded within like 20 minutes. And she's like, what? She's like, the Andy Wakefield? She's like, oh my God, I just was reading all this stuff. I'm like, okay. She's like, it's very interesting to me. Let me sign an NDA and shoot the script over. And within like 2 days, she was calling me, we're calling each other back and forth. She's, super pumped. I'm like, well, look, I've got to pitch you. I need you to read, submit it through casting, and then they'll get it organically. So about a week goes by, and I get a voicemail, and the director said, I think it was you that mentioned this woman before, and I told you no. Now I see, why you're on the team. And he's like, I love her. I love her so much. I'm going to call her right now and offer her the role. So it was pretty cool to see that kind of, transpire, and, to see how, into this, she was with this story, being a mother herself, understanding, the emotional, part of this story. And the script read very different from the actual film. As you know, things are sometimes cut out for many reasons and whatnot. But the script is very, very emotional for myself as well. Just having a new child. My child was 1 year old at the time, and like going through that whole experience. She is an absolute killer. I hope she does, 1,000 more projects. She's, I know what she's doing now. She's directing, she's producing, she's kind of like everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. And she's really good at it. So
what do you think was like the biggest lesson you learned in making this project?
Man, I mean, there's so much you learn on every project, right? And if you're not willing to learn on those things, then I think you're kind of failing at your job. So I always try to do, my best to surround myself with the people that I see as like being really great at their crafts, whether it's on set or not. Yeah, just building the right team. This is one of the lessons that I've had to learn over and over and over and over again. But just ensuring that you got the right, guys and girls there that are, willing to put everything into the project and do the job that you expect them to do. And there's a lot of psychology built into a team because some other people might come from somebody else that you might not know. So you're kind of, worried on everybody's got their quirks, especially people on set. My favorite thing to do is just people watch it's been my favorite thing to do since I started in film. I just love to people watch. Everybody's a character, including myself. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that must be so interesting with your psychology degree to then go into film looking at the...
I dropped out. Remember? I dropped out.
But I know you dropped out, but you must have you like to analyze people. So you still have that brain of just, okay, well, let's see how this, I mean, does that play a factor at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to put people together that you think will mesh and, keep an eye on certain things and really kind of just not be in people's business, but ask them, hey, how's it going? Ensure that like there's always an open door to, come and talk to you about anything, because when you let something go on forever and ever and ever, it blows up, and it always blows up at the wrong time, and it could blow up on set. And it's like, hey, if there's any issues, you kind of, got to play both sides. And it's not devious anyway. It's just making sure that, all parties are happy and there's no, major concerns.
What's your process for identifying projects that are stories that you want to bring to life?
Well, now we're kind of actively seeking those. Prior to that, I would kind of, as you guys probably get as well, just mass amounts of scripts sent to you all the time. Hello, sir. I'd love you to read this project.
Yeah.
And so I would actually do that, because I'm like, okay, that might sound interesting depending on what it is. I still do. But, now we're kind of in a position now. I'm working, took the position after Protocol 7. And, we're developing our own projects now, which is great. So we have a development team that has a list of, IP that we own and things that we've optioned for YOW for the next, year and a half. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of all the above. We do want to continue to make projects, not necessarily in like the medical, fraud world, but like, for instance, Brian and myself created a pilot called Backyard Bounty, which is very much like extreme makeover, but for your backyard. And we're growing regenerative food forests in residential backyards because, especially after COVID, people had this massive crisis. And I'm one of the people that always had MREs and dried foods and things like that. And people are like, oh, what are you, some sort of prepper? I'm like, well, no, but if something happens to the supply chain, we can't just rely on Rouse's to have all of our needs. You know what I mean? Because nothing's regional anymore. It's so sad, and we've lost this craft, including myself. I don't grow anything personally here. I should, but I love the show idea, and just kind of went forward with it. And now that thing it's an online right now. So we were going to go shop it, and now I think it's just going to stay on YOW TV.
Tell us a little bit about it's YOW. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
YOW. Can you tell us a little bit about YOW TV?
Sure. So YOW is a combination. It's ultimately a character, like an Asian character. It's a combination between Japanese and Chinese calligraphy that means freedom. And it just spells out YOW. Cool. So we love that because there's not much freedom in the mainstream film these days. It's, they're the gatekeepers, and we'll get into why. Remind me and ask me why later on.
This will be juicy.
Yeah, it'll be juicy. And we love that, we think that there should be freedom in filmmaking, and it should be for everybody. YOW TV is a direct result of the issues that we faced while distributing Protocol 7. We had a lot of interest, people coming into us, executives at multiple different agencies and massive companies, distribution companies, saying, wow, guys, this is a really great idea. That's so cool. We can't touch it. What are we supposed to do? We just invested a bunch of money in this thing. Obviously, we knew that we were going to have problems. So on the back end of that, we had already started developing an app for Protocol 7 because we had this list of 100,000 people that we had, garnered over the past, year and a half. So all these people kind of waiting to see the film. So we said, well, let's just create a place for it. If we can get it somewhere else, then great. But at least, we own it. We have it. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can touch it. And we kind of came to the determination after our, experience that like, wow, this isn't just happening to us. This is happening to a lot of people. And even if you do get your film distributed, nobody's buying it right now. I mean, people are buying films that cost millions of dollars for like $150K, right?
Mm-hmm.
For like 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. It sucks. People they're never going to make another film because, at least with that team that they, that trusted them to, with their money, or they're in a massive amount of debt. I know there's ways around that. But so we decided, well, let's kind of open this up and create this platform that bridges the gap for independent filmmakers without any gatekeepers. So like one of our taglines is like, no suits, no agendas, just stories. Right. So you'll start seeing that come out. All of our marketing has kind of like just started. We hired this incredible director of marketing, and we got a small team, but we're out there curating a bunch of titles, and ultimately it's a new home for independent film and distribution and content creators. There's a bunch of stuff, that's going to be happening down the line with it. The best scenario for YOW TV would be like Patreon meets YouTube meets Netflix.
Cool.
Right? A place where you as a filmmaker can, you have your community, you have this base of filmmakers that, we got a visitor, and she just locked out her mommy. Hi. What she got? You want to say hi?
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Hold on. She came in and she locked out Katya.
She's like, Mom can't get me.
It happens every time. I'm like in investor meetings, and it's the best though, because everyone just loves it. I love it too. It's great. But YOW TV, I think, is going to be really, really cool. I wrote about this like 2 years ago. I think that there's going to be, a renaissance for independent film. Like there has to be. Like there's all of these regurgitations. Nobody's taking risks on anything anymore. The next Shawshank Redemption is sitting on someone's desk, and they're not going to take it because it's not, Transformers 6. So, and I'll get into the reason why right now. So all of these companies, all of these streamers, some of their major shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. For like for Tubi, for Netflix, for Amazon, for all of these things, most of them, I have a list, I can send it to you. They own, between the three of them, at least anywhere from 7 to 10% each, right? So they're walking away with 30% of these companies. Well, guess who owns BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street? BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. The majority shareholders of each other. It's insane.
Interesting.
So there's no risk being taken. These people are in hundreds of billions of dollars in debt. Some of them, hundreds of millions, most of them, right? If you look at like Warner Brothers and Sony, and, it's nuts. So there's a reason for it, and if you see that, you're like, well, there's no risks are going to be taken. And I think that, we just saw Sean Baker with that speech at the Indie Spirit Awards, and I loved it. It was so amazing. And I think it's true. There's so many people right now creating great films and having the worst time trying to get it out, and there's not a place for it. And even if they get it on Amazon or Apple TV or something like that, and they win a bunch of awards at a festival, it doesn't matter. Because then you have to put millions of dollars in P&A into it, and there's nobody there to market your film because Amazon doesn't care. Neither does Netflix. They used to be, bastions for independent filmmakers, but now they've just become the big studio that everybody hated, right?
Yeah. What about Mubi though?
They're definitely more independent friendly. Yep. But we're going to be only independent.
I love that. Well, that's really, it's needed. I mean, we all knew that there had to be a renaissance. Like we've seen the shift happen even obviously before COVID. And I've always also said it myself, like someone has to create something different for indie filmmakers. And so this is amazing. We need you, Joey.
Yeah.
We totally I need
help.
you. Well, you can hire In Ceremony Productions and we'll help you.
Yeah.
Speaking of the funding, there's no one way, I guess, but do you have an approach that you use for securing funding for any projects, or do you have a group of investors that you find that you go back to continually, or do you just kind of hit the pavement with it sometimes and email as many people as you can?
Well, I've done all those things for sure, but the biggest thing you can do is just build trust with, somebody, and always be completely honest with everything. Don't shove numbers up somebody's butt because they don't care, right? You can manipulate data however you want, right? But always just be honest. But yeah, we've been very, very lucky to have very motivated investors to come in and help once they kind of saw what we were doing, and the quality production, and then the stories that we were telling. So that just goes to show that there is a market, even in the financial world, to go out and get funding for stuff like this, because it's needed. They're also consumers, right? These people are also in the viewer world, and they're not happy with what's available. I think I watched like 2 things on Netflix this entire last year. It's crazy. I'm like, why do I have this subscription?
Yeah. So in your journey for investment, because you first started just doing music videos, right? And then how did you make that jump from music videos? And then you had to find investment for Protocol 7, right? Do you find yourself being able to increase the type of investment that you have for your projects? Are you staying in a certain like money bracket, or are you going higher? Like what is your take on all of that?
Yeah, my philosophy is always walk before you run, right?
Yeah.
So, we walked around trying to sell this $100 million idea for 5 years, even though it was, ours, and it was really cool. We got really far with our conversations. I'm glad that that didn't happen, because ultimately I wouldn't have learned the lessons I needed to learn on, even the commercials and all the productions that, we're able to do. Obviously advertising, that's all very different. But as far as the funding goes for film, we were just very lucky to find someone very motivated to help with Protocol 7, but ensuring that, all of everything was budgeted, correctly, and that there wasn't money going into people's pockets. It was all going onto the screen. And because people are sneaky. You got to make sure you're working with somebody who's an honest person when it comes to money as well. But that, I think, that really shows to the people with the money when you do come off and prove yourself to be an honest person. So we've gotten very, very lucky. I'll put it that way. I've always just kind of gotten calls, hallelujah. But I know everything is temporary. I'm not really one to squander an opportunities. Yeah, I've been very blessed and lucky to just be in a circle of people who want to create things, right?
How do you maximize your P&A? I mean, obviously, I know you spent time creating a platform for independent film because it's so hard to get it out there. But even so, you still need to market on that platform and the film to get people interested. How do you maximize on that without having to spend a bajillion dollars?
I think it's just being, very smart and strategic with, number one, timing. Like, we picked a terrible time to come out with Protocol 7. I mean, it was an election year. There was a lot of, crazy stuff going on. Like, as soon as we announced that we were going to have this quote unquote theatrical run, it was all event cinema. Like, Joe Biden dropped out of the race, and, the whole news, all of our PR went away because the news cycle was all Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, this, that. And we're like, oh, crap. So that was difficult, but timing is one. Obviously, now is a better time. We could have waited until now in retrospect to come out with the film, but who knew what was going to happen with the world? And then, I think it's just very, very smart marketing. Get the right people, know who you're dealing with, and, ensure that and vet them. We were going to work with, for instance, a big name for one of these projects. And we did our research and asked around and talked to multiple people who had worked with them. And they're like, dude, they just took all of our money and sat on on an island somewhere. We're like, oh my God. So, and they've been doing that for a long time. But if we don't just blindly, follow somebody else's recommendation, I guess, use your own instincts. We're all, capable individuals. And that's, part of the process is, ensuring that you're doing it the way that you think you should be doing it, while also taking other people's advice into consideration.
Yeah, that's so true. That reminds me of a story that this didn't happen to me directly, but it was someone that I knew that they had this, and I had met this producer before in LA, and they gave him an investment for the money, and he used all that investment just to like fly around and have a good time. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, what?
Well, people think that's what it is. They think like, oh, I got this
Yeah.
money. Let's fly first class. Let's go here.
Yes.
And, like I gotta, it's work. It's work, baby. It's like, whoa, man. Like you really you gotta pinch the pennies because they go so quick.
Yeah.
It's almost like being like I mean, it's kind of maybe a bad analogy, but we've gone too far now. Like a realtor, you know what I mean? Like you put all this time and money and investment into it, and you have to, because if you don't, it's not going to pay off, right?
Yeah.
And once you get that payday, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. Fallon describes it as real estate too.
Oh yeah.
I've heard her describe it like that as well.
It's
It's fun.
Well, okay, so for filmmakers who are trying to break into indie producing, what is the one thing you think they need to stop doing immediately?
Oh Jesus. Man, one thing they need to stop doing immediately. One thing they need to stop doing immediately.
Or what's one thing they should start doing immediately?
They have the project, they have it budgeted, they have the pitch deck, they have the script, they're passionate about it. People say it's really interesting, but I'm going to pass. And they keep getting that pass. Have you ever come across other producers who you're like, I wonder why it's not working for them? Or like, what is it that, they haven't figured out?
I've got one. Get rid of your pride. Get rid of your ego. Get rid of, all of that. That's one thing you can stop doing right away, because that will be the downfall or the demise of you or your entire group of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that goes for everybody involved. That's one thing that Brian and myself said to each other, like right off the bat, like, hey man, there's no ego here. I'm not here to, you're my partner. I'm not here to advance over you. We're doing this together, and we do everything together. Every message is from Joey and Brian, because we talk about everything. There's, in the past, I've worked with people who, they always wanted to get an edge. They always wanted to be the person on the phone or this and that. And it's like, whoa, man, like we got to communicate here. And this is potentially a big issue. And it always is. And it always will be, and you hear about those stories too, even in mainstream film, where you just work with mega, egotistical people, and it sucks. It's hard. You don't want to work with those people. So don't be that person either, because you literally won't go anywhere in indie film. Even if you get like a film done, like that's probably one and done if you think that way.
That's so true. Like communication, trust, liability. It's just like to make a team work like that. I feel like I have that with Fallon, which is such a gem thing. You don't find that with a lot of people.
Yeah, it shows totally. And then that kind of falls in line with like your question as to what was it? What should somebody do or a filmmaker do if they have the script, it's not working? Like the ego falls in line with that, because you have to figure that out. It's either like, no, I know it. I know someone's going to want this and I'm going to make it. And that happens sometimes, right? But also like take a look at it, read into it. Yeah. Ask people why it's not working for them. Don't be scared to have those conversations with people, because the more insight you can gain, on it might just not be the right time. Like I tried to get something off the ground that was really good, but it was a specific type of drama. And, the agent's like, hey man, like it's really good, but nobody's buying this right now. So we're not going to do it. And I'm like, that's great insight. Thank you for telling me that, instead of just saying no. So I always ask why, because especially if it's somebody who's, deep rooted in the industry, but yeah.
Who's this one person, the Wizard of Oz, that's behind the curtain that is like, we're not buying this right now?
No, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, look, it's funny, how Hollywood is too. It's like they get to just set their own trends, because there's no way for the public to understand or know what's actually being watched. There's no Nielsen rating systems for these streaming services. So they truly are the gatekeepers now, right? Where they say like, this is the number one watch show. It's like, no, it's not, dude. Nobody's watching this crap, but you paid a bunch of money for it. So it's going to be on your top banner, right? And it's going to stay there, because they know the second that you click out of that thing. And there's a lot of failing shows right now.
Well, there's not a lot of good shows out there. That's the thing. That's just, I mean, it's just what you were saying, Joey. You only watch 2 things on Netflix and you're like, Like, what happened?
There's a lot of
Yeah.
reboots.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all
I'm watching
reboots.
reruns. I'm watching reruns currently, watching Modern Family right now because it's
Oh
so
yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah. It is so good. I know. Yeah. I just saw today. I don't know if it's a joke, but they apparently they're remaking A Walk to Remember. It might
Oh,
be a joke. It might be a joke. You never know. It's real on social media.
I mean,
I know.
So
that movie is rough. I can't get through that movie without crying.
so I don't know. I'm like, why would they do that? You know, it doesn't seem that old. Like, and I get, you know, I probably cried watching it. But I cry watching, you know, The Voice. So
Me too.
Oh my gosh, it's so inspiring.
yeah,
You're like,
it's incredible.
sorry,
That's still a good
such a good
show.
job.
Yeah, yeah. It sucks
Yeah,
because when all these strikes and things happen, reality picks up, right? But
yeah.
everything is so quote unquote second screen now, and nobody's actually watching it. It doesn't really matter because if there's ad dollars there, then it's great. But everything has this subscription model now to where it doesn't really matter how long you watch it for. There's certain metrics and ways for them to make more money, but the majority of, you know, those dollars are coming from, you know, from ads. But yeah, it's a very strange time in the industry. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, what's next for you in the industry besides YOW, which is so awesome, but what are you cooking up?
So we've got to finish The Honey Hunter's Daughter. This is one of our wrap shirts. So it's all in Thai. I have no idea what it says. No, it says like film crew. And then on the back, they made a special shirt for Brian and I. We ultimately, they just referred to us as Broy, like as one unit. So there, it says Broy in Thai, which probably doesn't translate correctly, but they loved it. No, we're gonna finish. We're gonna finish this. It's going into post starting on the 10th of March. We're, you know, we've got 12 weeks of edit, and then we've already got our post facilities lined up, and hopefully we can get this thing done by July or so. And we're gonna take a big out on the festival circuit, the big ones. Hopefully, it's truly unbelievable. I'll show you guys. I'll share with you some more screenshots and stills and things like that. I mean, it was just such a great experience. The Thai, I will say this, there's a lot of companies going out to different countries to shoot film because they want to save money, right?
Yeah.
Like, but our story took place in Thailand, and it was so amazing shooting with the Thai crew. First of all, I think Thai people are probably the nicest, most respectful people on the planet. And like, we walk in there, we're like, hey, what are we doing? You know, it's very different, but we only brought 9 people out there. And we brought 9 of, you know, what we thought were the best people. We put a really great team together. Once again, using a little bit of that, you know, psychology, and they worked so well and had just a blast. So yeah, we're going to finish that, and we've got some more things in development. We've got the pilot. I think we're hopefully going to shoot, you know, more episodes this spring and summer. That'll be here domestic in the U.S. And then right now, I mean, it's really just balls deep into YOW TV. Partnering with multiple distribution companies. We've licensed like 200 titles so far, and they're all highly curated. So the one thing we didn't want to do was go out and just get a bunch of crap that you can see everywhere else. So we're, you know, taking a lot of things into consideration. We've got this like massive list, this checklist of, you know, why we want this film and does it make sense? And we screen everything that we want or that we, you know, get on the platform. And I think it's just building more partnerships, getting out to festivals. One of the things that we want to do, I guess can't really be quiet about it now, or I'm about to say it, is partner with these festivals to expand their reach. Because one thing that we can do on YOW TV is create a channel for a specific filmmaker. Like if you have, you know, 10 films that you've already done and you want your own channel and you want to come on and create content like on YouTube or do live streams or just post your content and monetize it there, you can do that. You'll never be kicked off because we own our servers, unless you're like calling for, you know, the destruction of, you know, certain types of people, which would be terrible. Yeah, we want to partner with different festivals. We've got a massive kind of outreach program right now where they can come on, create a channel. We want to host our own YOW TV festival, TV Awards.
Love that. So
and
how
then
would that work?
right now it's invite only. So we've got a couple of shows that we're creating by like influencers that we've, you know, taken that already have a following. We said, hey, we want you to come to YOW TV, bring your people here. You can still have your other channels, but we want you to do a weekly show here and just see how it works out. But yeah, ultimately a distributor like Neon could have their Neon channel on YOW TV, and it could be their whole library of films, and they can monetize it however they want.
That's
and so
cool.
could a festival, right?
But they would have to have like their own like fan base and stuff like that. You would still have to essentially put in marketing dollars and all that stuff like that. So it's
but it's all mutually beneficial. But that's what I'm saying. That's why it's all kind of selective right now. It's not open source by any means, because we do want to build that base of people who are continually coming for different things. So yeah, it's very interesting. Lots of things in the works that nobody else is doing right now on a streaming platform, which is really cool. There's a couple social elements being taken into consideration that I think will be really cool. Very much like Spotify-esque playlists, but watch lists, shareable, likable stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, sounds like you're revolutionizing the film industry, Joey. Yeah. No small task over here.
It is, it's a lot. But like I said, we're not biting off more than we can chew. We're, taking it very slow. We're still in beta. So we're gathering a bunch of data right now from our viewers. And then we're selecting about 500 people to be a part of this test group, that they will have a certain criteria that they'll have to abide by and give us feedback on certain things. And they're coming from all across the board. So they're straight up viewers. All they do is watch content, or they hate content. They, like certain things. They don't like certain things. Some of them are filmmakers. Some of them, might be agents or industry professionals. So we want feedback from kind of everybody. So we're going to take our time, ensure that, what we're putting out there, what we're actually launching with is, something that is needed.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. So if any indie filmmakers that exist here in Louisiana, are you taking submissions, or I know you, okay. So
we are taking submissions. We have, you can go to YOW.TV right now. And at the bottom of the site, you can click submit your film, and there'll be a little form that you fill out. And that's kind of it. It goes straight to our acquisitions team, and they review it, send, certain films back to us. And we have captured a few films already that way, which is great. But as you know, it's difficult to find. Actually, it's not as difficult now. At first, it was very difficult to find really well-produced independent films. There's a lot of, stuff out there that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody put money into this. But there's a lot of really great content that we're seeing now that we're developing many more of these relationships, and we've been to a lot of these film markets during our face, and now we're going to start sponsoring festivals and just getting our branding out there so people know what we are.
What about short film? Will you ever have a space for that on your platform? We got
short films up right now, baby. Whoop. So that's something that we're super excited about. They're all free right now because we've already paid for them, the ones that are up there. But ultimately, you can choose how to monetize your short however you want. You can do AVOD, you can do rentals, TVOD. If it's brand new, you can do premium video on demand. And then, of course, there's a subscription base as well. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I like being one of the only streaming platforms out there that's allowed. I don't know why it's so hard to find shorts. They're so good. I watched before this, I watched 4 shorts on that couch that we just got submitted to us, and I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing. They're so good,
Yeah, there's a lot of good shorts out there. Yeah,
we're excited for you.
Yeah. Very much so. Thank you. That's very, very sweet. So thank you guys for having me. It was a total pleasure. It's always fun to see, what you both have going on, and I know that you're both going to excel in the industry, and let's continue to work together, because that's kind of, what we have to do. And I can't wait to work with the both of you on something. I know it's going to happen, and let's keep in touch and go to YOW TV. Check it out. If there's any filmmakers out there, which I know there are, just check it out and give me your feedback. You can email me at joey@yow-media.com. And if you have any questions about the platform, or if you have something coming up, let me know.
Beautiful. Joey Vasatka, everyone.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
I'm still in the Thai world.
Thanks for tuning in to Off Script. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more unfiltered conversations with the creatives shaping the Southeast film market. Until next time, keep creating, keep pushing, and keep telling your story your way.